Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Welcome to the KSL Real Estate Show. Hear updates on the national and local Utah real estate markets. We cover residential and commercial properties. Plus, get inspiring ideas to make your house a home from our sponsor, Osmond Designs. Here's Heather Osmond and Jeff Caplan on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to the KSL Real Estate Show. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem.
Yes, they are. And it is Super Bowl Sunday coming up. If you still need a sofa, a sectional, a TV console, please stop by Osmond Designs today. Everything is in stock. You can bring your truck and trailer, bring it home today, and get ready for the party. Today, we are really, really excited to have Jeremy Blair as our guest. He is the Chief Investment Officer at Mountain America Credit Union, and we're going to be talking about the 2026 economy, what's happening right here in Utah and across the country, and what it means for real estate, mortgages, and everyday families. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me on.
We're so happy to have you. This is going to be great. As you look at 2026 so far, what is one description that you would say maybe of Utah's economy right now?
Utah specifically is looking great. We're fortunate to live in that Mountain West region where we tend to trend a little bit behind what's going on the coasts, which is nice because we get to see the economic indicators flag out before they actually hit us. And right now, there's a lot of turmoil out there, but the Mountain West region overall is performing quite well. Utah specifically is doing excellent. We have a nice, diverse economy that always helps us. We're not a single sector area, and that's something that really protects us and insulates us a lot from some of the turmoil that's out there.
I agree. The word of the week, it seems to me, is inflation. How do you feel like that is hitting families the hardest here in Utah?
So inflation's been a rough one for Utahns. It's been a rough one for everybody over the last few years. The good news is it's looking better, but it's still there, right? Inflation's always present. We need targets for inflation, and that's the Federal Reserve. You'll hear them talk about their inflation target being around 2%. They're constantly hammering that home. We're sitting somewhere between 2.5% and 3% right now. So again, that's still enough to feel it, and it's a little bit higher than we'd like, but that's a manageable level. And you've seen that as the Fed started to cut rates off and on over the last year and a half. And that's because they're getting a little bit more comfortable with that 2.5% level. They'd still like to see that drop down to 2%, but it's enough right now where they're looking at that and saying, okay, inflation's in a place where we can start to move forward instead of looking backward. And that's really, I think, the goal right now for most forecasters and most policymakers is saying, okay, we've come out of what we know was an extremely high environment. We have some good positive downward momentum. How do we build on that? And how do we keep this inflation in check? And that's where things start to fall apart because everybody has a different opinion on how to do that.
Oh, for sure. Okay, Mountain America, let's specifically talk about that. You have locations all across the Wasatch Front. There are so many locations. It's convenient. You have a ton of members. I always see your parking lots very full. Your drive-thrus are very, very full. Do you feel like members are using more credit than ever before?
Definitely. That's a trend that's been growing since the COVID pandemic, right? We saw credit levels actually drop off quite a bit during the pandemic. We had people staying home. They weren't spending as much. A lot of them got some government stimulus money. If you can't go out and spend it, a lot of them actually use that to pay down their credit. That was great for consumers. They came out of COVID with the best credit they've ever had. Hard stop. Like we've never seen credit levels so clean. And that was great for them because it allowed a lot of them to get on top of their financial situation for the first time. Then things unlocked and we came out, and my favorite phrase post-pandemic was that revenge spending and revenge travel. I'm like, I'm not sure what they were taking revenge against, but there were a lot of people going out and leveraging up in that. They were in a better position to do that because they had better credit scores than they'd had in the past. And I would say we got a little carried away, as we tend to do, right? And now those credit levels have really risen up. That pushed the inflation higher. but it also pushed the individual household balance sheets higher. And then with the interest rates rising up on top of that, it made it really difficult for people to service that debt. We're kind of at a point now where people really are carrying that burden, but it's starting to come down a little bit. I think there's a few factors in play there. One, we've seen interest rates come down a little bit. So your credit cards and home equity lines and things like that reprice off of those floating rate interests, those have come down a little bit. And that's been really good for the consumers to help them get that debt burden back under control. The other piece of it is they're looking at this saying, boy, I really need to dial this back a little bit. We're actually starting to see a little bit of consumer behavior change. A little discipline coming back into our lives. That's good for all of us. And as they've done that, we think that 2026 is actually shaping up to be a pretty good year. We think we'll probably see credit continue to be very tight for these individuals going through the first quarter of the year. But then as we go toward mid-year, we get through that tax return season, I think we're going to see some real improvements in consumer credit, and that's going to be really good for the consumer. They're going to get back on top of their financial scene.
There's a lot of talk about consumer confidence potentially, cratering in the last couple of months, that people are really concerned about this buzzword now, affordability. And, I've seen theories that part of the problem is when it's things that you spend money on all the time that are going up, you feel like inflation is worse than it is. For instance, beef prices. You buy beef at the grocery store once a week, right? And it's drilled into your head. Too expensive, too expensive, too expensive, while a lot of other things have come down. So what do you think about consumer confidence at this point and how that's going to impact what happens going forward?
Yeah. So with tariffs finally in check, that's going to help a little bit, right? They're going to stop seeing that day-to-day increase that they've been experiencing over the last few years and those rapid spikes that have been going on. So we think that consumers are going to start to get that under control a little bit, especially as you point out. Beef's a great example, right? I'm originally from Texas. I love a good steak.
Who doesn't? Come on.
As we see things like that we really like, the comforts in our life, as those get more expensive, we tend to focus on that a little more because those are things that we've always fallen back on when we need something that feels good and feels right. If our electric bill goes up a little bit, we just kind of grit our teeth and go, oh, well, that's inflation. We'll be fine. But I think a lot of those things are starting to come back down to earth a little bit. The inflation has shifted more towards services than goods at this point. And I think that's really going to help that ease a little bit of that pain and ease a little bit of that tension that consumers are feeling when they're specifically at the grocery store and places like that.
Are you seeing people delay their big purchases like cars or remodeling or even moving right now?
We didn't over the last couple of years, and we kept expecting that, but consumers' spending held up. We are starting to see that form a little bit now. As we look at graphs of consumer spending, we're seeing that they've leveled off. They're not dropping, but they're not increasing at the rates that they have been in the past. And again, is that a positive or a negative? Well, it depends on where you sit. If you're sitting on a lot of credit, that's probably good. It's going to allow you to get your house back in order. But if you're a business, you don't like to see that trend of leveling off because, again, that carries a whole host of other problems.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so I think there's two categories usually. There's savers and then there's spenders. So if you're feeling stressed about money because you're a spender, what's the first smart step you'd recommend?
Definitely budget. It always starts with the budget. Nobody likes to hear that. I don't even like to hear that.
I hate that word.
Yeah, it's no fun.
You mean budget like we're going to allot $300 for entertainment this month, that kind of budget?
That's exactly what we're talking about. But it goes beyond entertainment. Yep. Hey, rely on your radio shows, right? Those don't cost you much. You can do that for entertainment. There's a lot of things out there that we can cut back on. It's never comfortable. I always remind people, say, how many streaming services do you have? Do you really need 14 of them? Maybe 7's better. We used to all just have a cable bill and that was it. But that's really changed in recent times. Do we have a lot of these subscription services that maybe we need to take a hard look at and say, could I do with a few less of these in my life? Same thing when you're budgeting, when you're at the grocery store. We all have those things that we love. What are the ones where we can say, maybe instead of buying that every week, I buy that every few weeks? And those little cutbacks, they make a big difference in the long haul. The things that you don't have control over, the cost of your energy, the cost of your insurance, your mortgage rate to a lot of people, those are the ones where we know we're kind of stuck with those. But the things that we can do every day to kind of make those small incremental changes, don't try to do them all at once. We can't maintain habits like that, but start making a few of them at a time, and it really does start to add up.
Do you feel like Mountain America Credit Union often sees consumer spending and behavior early, like credit card usage, delinquency, auto demand, and savings before maybe the headlines are even talking about it?
Sometimes we do, especially when you're talking about the regional economy. There we definitely have a little more insight. Again, our trends tend to be a little bit slower than the nationals in this region. So a lot of times the national trends, we'll hear them and then we'll start to watch for them on our balance sheets. And anywhere from 3 to 6 months later, we'll start to see a similar trend hitting. And so we do keep an eye on that. But really when we see individuals coming into our credit union saying, hey, I'm having trouble, can you help me out? That's really when we start to say, okay, we're seeing an influx of people asking for help. And we try to do that. We provide free counseling for them on the financial front, help them consolidate that debt down, get it into a more manageable level. And we have seen an increase in that in the last few years. But we're confident that this is going to be a good year for improvement there.
What economic indicator do you think that our listeners should watch for on a monthly basis? Is there anything specific?
Yeah, definitely. We watch what's happening with interest rates on the long end of the short end of the curve. That's to say, what are you paying on your credit cards? That's really tied to the short end of the curve. If you see those rates going up, it tells you something's going on out there. And then on the longer end of the curve, that's back to mortgage rates. And that's something that, we can watch for longer term trends because those are usually indicative of where expectations for inflation are going.
Jeremy Blair, Chief Investment Officer at Mountain America Credit Union. When we come back, we're going to talk about the big one everyone asks about, interest rates in 2026 and what it means for mortgages, refinancing, and affordability right here in Utah. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Dr. K at Stubbs Dental Implant Center. If missing or broken teeth are holding you back, you're not alone. If you are ready to change your life, mention this station and you'll also receive free sedation with the All-on-X treatment, a $2,000 value. Visit stubbsdental.com today.
I'm Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial advisory firm in Salt Lake City and St. George, Utah. We're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. 888-999-6370 or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Did you know fluoride is not available in Utah water systems? And fluoride supplements work best from 6 months to 16 years old. A healthy smile isn't just about teeth. It's about health and confidence. Your smile matters. Find resources at yoursmileutah.org.
We're back with the KSL Real Estate Show, sponsored by Osmond Designs on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the KSL Real Estate Show. We're glad you're listening. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem.
Yes, they are. And everything is on sale today at Osmond Designs. We have the entire store is an additional 20% off. And then we have some yellow sale tags, and they are all 30% off. So come check those out. We have the best brands of furniture in the entire country, the high end, the low end, lots of price points in the middle, probably something for everyone. And we have over 40,000 square feet of showroom space and a 10,000 square foot warehouse. So you can come and pick it up. It's all unique things that 7 of your neighbors are not going to have. So that's always exciting. Today, we are so happy to have Jeremy Blair from Mountain America Credit Union. And we're talking about the economy, which is always a hot topic. In this segment, we're tackling the question everyone asks at parties, at church, and at every open house, and probably will be a topic of the Super Bowl. What's happening with interest rates, and what does it mean for mortgages? Jeremy.
That's probably something I'd asked about more than anything else, specifically in my role. People know that we follow the markets very closely. I'm what's a lot of people refer to as a Fed watcher, right? I'm very interested in what Jerome Powell doing this week. What did he have for breakfast? Does that indicate anything? Everybody wants to know what's going on there. And that's a huge question, right? We've seen over the last few years, we came off the peak of the cycle, which we were all thrilled about, right? We saw those interest rates start to come down. I think specific to that, the one I get asked about the most is, hey, I heard the Fed cut rates this week. Why did mortgage rates not go down? Do you guys get that as well?
Absolutely.
We do.
Yeah.
In the newsroom, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's that's a big one. And I'm usually my answer is, how much time do you have? Let's sit down and talk about this, because that's
a whole nother show right there.
It really is. It really is. And that's one of those things that I think it's really important for people to understand some of the things that go into what makes a mortgage rate, right? There's supply and demand. Believe it or not, that does play in. We don't usually think of that with interest rates, but but that's true. Really what it's more of, though, is so let's take, for example, back in December, the Fed cut rates, right? They cut rates, and then we actually saw mortgage rates go up a little bit shortly after that, and that kind of blew some people's minds. We were anticipating that, but we told people, stay calm. They're going to come back down. This is temporary. What happens there is, that overnight rate that the Fed sets, that they don't set the rate for the whole market. They don't set the rate for what a 5-year bond is doing, or a 10-year bond, or even a 30-year bond. They only set that overnight rate, and it's what's considered a signal, right? They're signaling to the rest of the economy, hey, we think the economy's getting stronger. Maybe we are worried about inflation, so we're going to raise that rate. Or we think the economy is improving, we're going to cut that rate. And then what happens is investors out in the marketplace go buy those other bonds. Things that they're putting into consideration there is, how long am I going to hold this? How much inflation do I think is going to hit this over that time period? Mortgages specifically, as we know, price against the 10-year point on the Treasury curve, right? So that 10-year Treasury bond is the one that most mortgage watchers are keeping a close eye on. For that, you have to think, what does the marketplace think inflation is going to do over the next 5, 7, and 10 years? And that's really going to get priced in there. So if the Fed cuts rates overnight to the Fed funds rate, that doesn't necessarily mean that people think that's going to pass through in the long run. They might look at that and say, okay, well, that's going to help us in the short term, but we think inflation's high right now. We think it's going to stay high for a little while, and that holds that 10-year price up. I'm often asked, well, why the 10-year? Why the Treasuries price off of that? There's no magic formula to that other than it's the closest point on the Treasury curve that we can point to and say, that's about how long people stay in their homes. Somewhere in that 7 to 12 year range, right? That's a nice clean point in the middle. I know you hear about that 7-year itch, lifestyle change. People, they have a child, they get married, they get divorced, someone passes away. Those are all things that keep people moving in and out of homes and in and out of mortgages. And on average, that's around every 7 years.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is when we see the headline, Fed cuts interest rates, that's like candy being dangled in front of us. Oh, interest rates are coming down, but it has nothing necessarily to do with mortgages, which are more focused on, you said, the 10-year T-bond.
That's exactly right.
That's what you should be watching.
Yeah, and I like that comparison, right? Nothing like a good headline, right? Fed cuts rates. Well, they really only cut one rate, and that was that overnight Fed funds rate that they cut. But that does tend to signal to the marketplace, but, the market doesn't always agree with the Fed.
So true. Are buyers using more tools in 2026, like rate buy downs, adjustable rate mortgages, and seller concessions?
We saw a lot of that in late 2025. When mortgage markets get tough, when affordability gets tough, where you see a lot of this getting pushed is from the builder side of things. Builders, God bless them, we need them in the market, right? Especially in the Mountain West and especially in Utah. We know that we have a housing shortage and we want those buyers in here, but they're also subject to short-term changes in the market. And when they see demand dry up, they take a really hard, fast, quick look at what's driving that. Is it because we have too much of a supply? Well, we know that's not the case here, right? We need more supply. They look at that and say, is it an affordability issue? Okay, now that makes a little bit of sense. We've seen housing prices go up nearly 50% in the last 5 years. That's wild. And so as they look at that and they say, okay, if there's a short-term change in the marketplace, we can offer some of these incentives. We can offer some of these buy-down rates. So they're really one of the primary drivers that I watch and see what are they doing, because they're usually most plugged in, and we have seen a lot of that in the last year. We expect that's probably going to continue a little bit into 2026.
I have a lot of people always asking me, do I wait for perfect or I just get in the market? And I always say, get in the market.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and I think you need to look at that and say, okay, what is my situation, right? If I can afford the home, and I can't quite afford the interest rate, or maybe I can barely afford the interest rate, then the question is, well, if I jump into this home, will there be an opportunity to refinance this 12, 18, 24 months from now when rates come down? You've got to be able to afford it in the meantime, though. So don't get yourself house poor, right? So that is something to certainly keep in mind. And then you got to look at home price appreciation is the other thing that people are always looking for. There's two sides, obviously, to that we got to watch out for. And I think buyers just need to be aware of what their affordability level is.
Oh, for sure. Jeremy Blair, Chief Investment Officer at Mountain America Credit Union. When we come back, we're going to zoom in on housing specifically, Utah inventory, affordability, and what the 2026 market looks like for buyers, sellers, and builders. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Dr. K at Stubbs Dental Implant Center. If missing or broken teeth are holding you back, you're not alone. If you are ready to change your life, mention this station and you'll also receive free sedation with the All-On-X treatment, a $2,000 value. Visit stubbsdental.com today.
I'm Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial advisory firm in Salt Lake City and St. George, Utah. We're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. 888-999-6370 or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Did you know dental pain is the top reason children miss school? Dental disease in children is almost entirely preventable. Good habits start early with brushing, regular dental visits, and fluoride protection. Your smile matters. Find resources at yoursmileutah.org.
Welcome to the KSL Real Estate Show. Hear updates on the national and local Utah real estate markets. We cover residential and commercial properties. Plus, get inspiring ideas to make your house a home from our sponsor, Osmond Designs. Here's Heather Osmond and Jeff Caplan on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the KSL Real Estate Show. Glad you're with us. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem.
Yes, they are. Welcome back to the KSL Real Estate Show. I'm here with Jeff Caplan. We are continuing our 2026 economy conversation with Jeremy Blair from Mountain America Credit Union. Let's talk housing, because in Utah, real estate is basically its own language. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
It's always good news. I love doing this radio show because we get to have people like you on the show, people I've never met before. I'm learning so much today, and I actually am in the industry myself. Not only do I do interior design and I own furniture stores, but I'm also a real estate investor. I'm a real estate agent in a former life, I guess, previously to my design business. But from your seat, Jeremy, where you do this every single day, what do you think is the biggest story in Utah housing for 2026 already?
That's a great question. At present, I would have to say supply is still dominating. That's been a challenge for Utah since we exploded on the national scene. Some people would say that was back in 2002. I'd say that was definitely one event. The other one was realistically as we look at the COVID pandemic, something happened in the Mountain West region. People woke up and said, that's not just an area to fly over. That's actually a great place to live. I want to go there. And we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of in-migration, not from any one area, but from everywhere. And people came, a lot of them were like, well, I'm just going to go out there temporarily until this whole thing blows over. And they got here and said, this is awesome, we're staying. And as that happened, we saw that we were not keeping pace on the supply side with what was actually happening on the demand side. And that's continued. We're playing catch up from that. It's crazy how a single event that didn't last really very long set us back probably anywhere between 7 and 10 years on the supply curve. And we're digging our way out of that hole. And we're doing a good job. I've got to give it to, again, I go back to our builders and say thank you so much for the work you guys are doing coming in and building not just single family, but multifamily. We need a good mix of both. You can't have one or just the other. And as they do that, they are slowly improving that supply situation. The tough spot there is we continue to be a great place to live. We continue to be a thriving economy, and that really attracts additional people that want to come in and take part in that economy. So we're going to continue to have that constant struggle. And there's a lot that goes along with that, as you know, that pushes prices, that pushes inventories up and down. You have to look at what are the differences happening between existing homes and new homes. Those both play a large function in where this overall market goes. But I'd say we have a good diverse mix here in Utah that's not available in all places.
New construction is definitely going strong. This past week, I actually sat in on a Home Builders Association meeting for the Utah Valley Parade of Homes. There are over 40 homes that will be in this year's parade, which is one of the biggest ever. And the price of these homes are outrageous. I mean, huge numbers. Big, huge custom homes that are decked to the nines. It is going to be an incredible show. But there's also existing homes. Do you think that inventory is improving mainly because of new construction, or improving maybe because sellers are listing and buyers are pulling back?
Yeah. So in our region specifically, our inventory and the availability of homes is being driven by new construction primarily. And that's there's a lot of factors that play into that. We talk about housing affordability, right? Like you said, some of these new homes you're seeing in the Parade of Homes are big and they're beautiful and they're astronomically expensive compared to what we've seen in the past. Now, if you were to poll, and they do poll, if you poll Americans, actually about 70% of them think that housing is just too expensive and they'd love to see it come down. On the flip side of that, if you tweak that question just a little bit and you say, would you like to see the value of your home go down? That number drops to about 10%, and that's generally in markets with very, very high property taxes, and that's it.
Well, is the answer to that building smaller houses?
That can be part of it, certainly. Smaller houses, and I hate to say this because nobody likes this. I know I hate a commute, but houses that aren't necessarily located in the exact city center areas, that has all sorts of other trickle-down impacts. But we do have to look at other areas. I know when we look at Utah, we look at where's the growth, and it's in areas that 10 years ago, if we'd told you there was going to be growth there, you would have laughed me out of the room. It's like, no, nobody's going to live out there. But we have to go where the property's available, affordable, and spacious enough that, like you said, people want a little bit of a yard. You don't want to be stacked directly on top of your neighbor if you're buying a new home.
We're very concerned about growth and building houses because we have so many children here who want to stay in Utah. It's a very, very, very important issue. And I look at that snowpack and see nothing. We don't have water. Does that figure into any of this?
It should. That's my politically correct answer.
That would make too much common sense, Jeff. I don't know.
Well, if we're saying build, we have to be able to provide water to all these homes and these communities. And we're trying to come up with answers, but we don't have them. Yet we're moving forward because we need the housing. And I'm just wondering if that's going to impact prices, if we're going to have to slow it at some point. Do you create projections based on this, or is that politics and kind of out of your sphere?
I tell people I try to stay out of the politics as much as possible. In economics, that's virtually impossible because you're going to offend someone on both sides all the time, no matter what you say. But as I look at that, infrastructure is basically what you're asking about. And we have a tendency to build fast to get people into the homes, but the infrastructure tends to lag behind. Good news is we're not unique in that problem. That happens all across the country. There are very few places you can point to that say they did a great job getting infrastructure in place before they built. Just doesn't work that way.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, first-time home buyers. Let's talk about those. The biggest hurdles, I think those soda shops are number one. We all have to go get your Diet Coke, with all the syrups and the flavors. My kids, specifically my older girls, they travel a lot. They love to go on vacation. They have animals. They love all of those things. It's hard to save up for those down payments, your income, your debt, your interest rate, all of those things. What are the biggest hurdles?
Well, you just hit on it, right? It goes back to that budgeting piece, and the higher the home values get, the more important that budgeting piece becomes. I talk to a lot of people that tell me exactly that. I have children as well, and I look at them and I worry about the affordability and will they be able to live near me. We talk about that. Actually, my son asks me about that all the time. He knows what I do, and he asks, Dad, am I even going to be able to live here? I'm like, yes. But it might take you longer to get there. You look at the average age of people that buy their first home. It used to be, in their late 20s, and now it's in their late 30s.
Wow.
That's really shifted, and that's partially, like you said, a bigger awareness of lifestyle events that they like to do. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. If you like to travel, great. That's your priority. Go with it. But if you're looking to buy a home, know that you're going to have to make sacrifices in other areas. And, while housing is unaffordable, what that does mean is you're going to take a little longer to save up that down payment. You can take a little longer to prepare. And while that's not fun, it does a few things for you. It allows you a larger window to watch interest rates and say, I can pick when I enter the market because I've saved up and I'm ready when that time comes. And in the meantime, if that time is not right now, I can continue to save and wait.
As a cranky old guy, I know many before me have said, well, if they just bought fewer lattes at Starbucks, they'd be able to afford a house. I think the ship has sailed on that. But at the same time, look at the price of a car. People are now taking out 8-year loans on a car. That is something that did not exist 25 years ago. 4 years, max. That's all there was. Now you're in debt. It's almost like you have a mortgage on your car and it's a depreciating asset, and I'll stop.
No, that's...
You are a cranky old man, Jeff.
Thank you.
You hit on a phrase that I actually use. I call it a car mortgage. We've seen mortgages for homes that are 10 years. Believe it or not, there are auto loans out there at 10 years at this point.
Really?
And to me that seems that seems like you're going to stretch yourself pretty hard, especially on a new vehicle where you're putting a lot of money. You're paying a high price for that vehicle to begin with. As we look at that, the average price of a new car coming off the lot at the end of 2025 was $50,000. It's the highest it's ever been.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. This is insane. Okay. Are people receiving gifts from family more often for not only homes, but also for cars and anything else they're doing?
That's a hard one to track because, again, someone would have to disclose that information, and they're supposed to, but they don't always do that. I think a lot of people do. I think we all know individuals that have done that, gifting a child the down payment that they need on a home, or even doing it as a personal loan. I think that's probably even more common than the gifting, is where you'll have a family member or a friend that will make a private arrangement for you for a low interest loan to get you into either the down payment that you need or enough to get you past that PMI window so that you can afford the home a little bit better and not have to pay that higher interest rate that you would on a split mortgage or something like that.
Absolutely. Affordability in 2026 is driven by a combination of, number one, home prices, number two, interest rates, number three, insurance, number four, taxes, and number five, HOA. I think many buyers underestimate the last three, which is insurance, taxes, and HOA. Those do need to be addressed when you are purchasing a home.
You don't think of inflation hitting things like insurance, but it does, and it has. Insurance rates across this country, depending on the region you're in, have gone up anywhere between 20 and 50% for homeowners insurance. That is a huge impact on your affordability when you're looking at what can I afford, not just in a home price and not just in an interest rate, but in my overall payment that I'm going to have to make every single month. That's really become a key driver, and that is a result of pass-through inflation. We think of inflation hitting eggs. Okay, well, that's great. We don't think about, well, as those eggs get more expensive and everything gets more expensive, workers' wages have to go up. As workers' wages go up, that's going to hit us on things like construction worker wages. That's going to hit us on costs of the goods that they produce, and that's going to push home prices even higher. And that is the same thing for insurance when they have to come in and replace things on those homes. It costs more to replace or fix or repair those homes than it did in the past.
Oh, for sure. Jeremy Blair, you are the voice of reason that we always need on this show. You are the Chief Investment Officer at Mountain America Credit Union. One last quick question for you. When rates rise, the market often shifts. How fast can I win to how smart can I negotiate? Buyers gain leverage through inspections and concessions. If you have cash is king. You can get a better price on a home.
That's for sure, right? If you know that you're trying to buy a home and say you're trying to sell a home, somebody comes to you with a cash offer, it's real easy to just grab that cash offer, right? You're like, look, I know this is no fuss, no muss. They've got the cash. Let's just get this done. That's something that has really become more prevalent as we've had a lot of private investors coming in and buying large tracts of home. That's something that we're likely to see continue for now.
Get pre-approved at Mountain America Credit Union for a stronger negotiating stance when you are purchasing a home. When we come back, we'll finish with the broader consumer economy, small business, credit savings, and what you're seeing in Utah households in 2026.
This is Dr. K at Stubbs Dental Implant Center. If missing or broken teeth are holding you back, you're not alone. If you are ready to change your life, mention this station and you'll also receive free sedation with the All-on-X treatment, a $2,000 value. Visit stubbsdental.com today.
I'm Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial advisory firm in Salt Lake City and St. George, Utah. We're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. 888-999-6370 or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Did you know fluoride is not available in Utah water systems? And fluoride supplements work best from 6 months to 16 years old. A healthy smile isn't just about teeth. It's about health and confidence. Your smile matters. Find resources at yoursmileutah.org.
We're back with the KSL Real Estate Show, sponsored by Osmond Designs on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the KSL Real Estate Show. Thank you for listening. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs with stores in Lehigh and Orem.
Yes, welcome back to our final segment of the KSL Real Estate Show. We're here with Jeremy Blair from Mountain America Credit Union, and we're finishing strong with what he's seeing from consumers and small businesses and what might be next for the economy. Jeremy, what are you seeing with everyday household finances? Are people still stretched?
They're definitely stretched still. That's the tricky thing with inflation. Is inflation goes down, that doesn't mean prices go down. It just means they stop going up quite so fast. All right. So once you go up, it's really tough to bring them back down. And in all honesty, you don't necessarily want them to come back down because that usually means something fundamentally broke in the economy. So we have to level set and get used to that. That takes time. Every time you go through a bout of inflation, it can take anywhere from a year to 2 years for people to get back to match out where the inflation's gone to with wage increases and things like that. The good news there is that in Utah, we have a very robust consumer economy. We have a very robust job market. We tend to trend well below the national trends on unemployment, things like that. And again, that goes back to the diversity that we have in this area. And that really does help our consumers stay strong. It helps us catch up usually from inflation bouts faster than other parts of the country.
What's happening with credit card balances and consumer debt? Are people paying down or are they leaning on their credit right now?
They're still leaning on their credit right now. That really increased over the last few years. As we mentioned, we saw people coming out of the COVID pandemic with very strong credit. And so they really leaned into that and they used that new credit that they had. That was fine to an extent. But as we generally do, they went a little too far in a lot of cases and they overextended. And that was a real challenge when rates were really high. We saw a lot of delinquencies rise up because of that. As rates have started to come back down, people are starting to get a better handle on that. But it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get out from under some of those burdens. That's where we really recommend people come in and look at a consolidation plan if they're struggling with that.
Okay, Jeremy, here's a good one for you. What's one mistake you wish borrowers would stop making?
Definitely. Well, there's a lot of them we make. I think we're all guilty, myself included. We've all made mistakes on the borrowing front. I would say be really careful with debt that you don't quantify real easily. It's real easy these days when you go to the checkout to just click on that, pay later. This is great. Make 4 easy payments. And you can do that once or twice, but when you do that at 8 or 9 or 10 stores, that really starts to add up on you and you can lose track of that. The beauty of a credit card, again, people have mixed opinions on credit cards, but the nice thing is if you're using one credit card, your billing statements are all in one place and it's real easy to track and see, what am I spending? Where am I overspending? Where do I need to cut back? If you've got it kind of scattered out across some of these buy now, pay later type of situations or a payday lender or something like that, it makes it a little more difficult to keep track of, hey, how much debt am I really in at this point in time and how much am I paying on that debt?
What's the best advice you can give to a family member who wants to buy a home in the next 12 months?
The next 12 months, I would say save to begin with. I know. Old-fashioned, no fun.
No lattes.
Dang it. Lattes every other day. How about that?
Just stir yourself a latte fund. That's great. Watch that grow. Make sure that whatever you're saving, you're putting to work. Put that in a money market fund. It's your financial institution where you've got a really good rate, and you can earn on that while you're waiting. Let your money work for you. That's the best advice I can give somebody. Keep saving, but make sure that the money's doing the heavy lifting for you.
Don't you think just cancel some of those credit cards too, right? It's so tempting. I know I'm guilty. I go to Ulta, I go to Sephora, I go to Dillard's, and they say, you can save 10% on this purchase right now. And I think, that's amazing. Look at this free gift. I get makeup or perfume or whatever for
We're
opening.
all suckers for
We're
that.
suckers, and it works every time. So, yeah, that's something that I know I can work on.
Everybody loves something free.
I know. We're in Utah. We love free stuff.
Who doesn't, right? It's great. But I would say this, if you could put some context around that, and they offer you that free cute tote bag or that awesome T-shirt, with the really cool logo on it. And you say, look, this is free. I say, really? You're paying 24% on that credit card. What's that come out to on the cost of that T-shirt? It's a lot more than you would have paid for it at the store.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so in higher rate years, don't you think we just need to prioritize the necessities versus, wants versus needs?
If you can find me somebody that's really good at that, I would love to speak with them. You should have them on your show because I think I struggle with it. Everyone struggles with that. What is a want? Sure, feels like a need sometimes. But putting that down on paper and laying it all out, for me, having it in front of me is the easiest way to really look at that and say, okay, you know what? Do I really need, to your point, Jeff, the latte? Okay, probably on Tuesdays I do, but maybe not on Friday. Just find those places where you can start to cut back a little bit, and that's going to start to add up for you.
Jeremy Blair is the Chief Investment Officer at Mountain America Credit Union with locations all across the Wasatch Front. How do people find you, Jeremy?
Well, come to macu.com. It's the first place if you want to get in touch with us. It'll give you an idea of all the products that we offer to our members. We are a not-for-profit institution. We're really here to serve our members and help them achieve their financial dreams. And then you can come on into a branch if that's your preference. If you like to talk to somebody in person, we have financial advisors that can help you with anything from credit cards to getting your debt consolidated to a mortgage loan to even making deposits and savings so that you can afford that house someday.
This was incredibly helpful to all of our listeners. If you're making a big move in 2026, you're buying, you're selling, you're refinancing, or you're just trying to budget, remember you don't have to do it alone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back next week.